Are you feeling stifled, worn out, or just bored with your 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 job? I want you to know that you're not alone. I was there too till I started asking and wondering if there was another way to live and work where I could actually be more of me. In this episode, I bring to you real conversations with real people who have chosen to step out of their 9 to 5 employment and create a life for themselves that is more in line with their inner rhythm. Good afternoon, Ram.
Good afternoon, Ramya. Thank you for inviting me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview because listening to your story and hearing from you is going to be such a contribution to this series as we talk about various possibilities that are available for people as they craft their careers and their lives. Not necessarily sticking just to the 9 to 5 or corporate employment format.
Right.
So I would, ask you to just take us through your journey and going back as far as you would like to, in terms of your first job, how you thought about your career, where, you worked at a couple of different places. So take us through those experiences, how it felt, what happened, and also, and then bring us to the first time maybe when you started thinking that, oh, okay, I could do something outside of just this working for another person or an organization. So how did you land with those triggers?
Yeah. I think the relevance of my experience would rather not start with my experience itself. It would start from my schooling. I'll just give a very quick brief what happened. At the age of 15, I completed my 10th like most do, give a year or two there. And I somehow felt this is not me. At the age 15, I thought I couldn't study further. And I said this to my parents, who were a little too highly educated for me. And I said, this is not working for me. So it was a shocker in a conservative family like ours. And by second PUC or pre-university, as it's called in Bangalore University, now when you're taking such hard decisions in life, you've got to follow it up with something better. But I was told that you won't get a good job, and they were right. I never got one, right? And I was always working somewhere, right? You never get a dream job, anyways, I guess. And I continued working. So finally, I did just for the sake. I got a degree just for the sake of my parents. I just entered into chartered accountancy. I was drifting. That is the point I'm trying to make. I was drifting a lot in my mind because I knew fully well that I had to do something about it. And anyway, I never became a chartered accountant. I was a chartered accountant. I left the space and I moved on, And guys without the education in those days, in the 80s and early 90s, you get a sales job. So picked one. And not that you'd get any other job. So you better do well with the job that you've got. So I went on to do fairly okay and liked the job because that was in 1990 when I joined a sales company, which was Avery India, a British MNC, and it taught me how to meet people and how to engage with people. Most people deal with people, handle people. They all ask these questions: how do I handle people? How do I deal with people? I said, why do you need to do all these things? Just engage with people. And they will come across
I'm
very
going
well.
to stop you there just for a minute to elaborate a little more, because I loved that, because the words we use are so important. Dealing, handling, which sounds really, now that I think of it, oh my God.
Yes.
And engaging.
Yes.
Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, I when I do these lectures, especially on leadership, Ramya, I find people asking me this question: Ram, how do I deal with this kind of people? Oh yeah. And then they ask me, how do I handle these, these people who work under me? I said, what do you mean deal? Are you a trader? What do you mean handle? It's a cup and saucer stuff or something that heavyweight you have to lift? Come on, the people, they're with emotions. They require care. They require empathy. They just need to be spoken to, for God's sakes, do that. So you need to engage with them. Perspectives will not match all the time, but did you compromise because you seem more intelligent, because you said they didn't understand? That means you're more intelligent. So what did you do with your intelligence? Did you try to engage with people? So my premise has always been to people that can we engage with people and stop this the choice of words that we use in our head is what you end up as an actionable. So I think we need to be careful about that. So that's the idea I've been pervading. Yeah,
Also what
please.
we build as a skill or capacity, right? So what
Right.
I'm taking away, and and I'm sure we'll hear more about this, is your capacity to engage with people that
Yeah.
you get building, rather than needing to treat them as things, cards,
Right.
and toys to be dealt.
And I also came across, just to add to, as you're speaking, just to add to the point that, you can't be, I read somewhere, you can't be insulted without the permission of your own. Until you give permission, only you get insulted. So, you mirror always the reactions from the other side. How well did you come across? So you engage. If you handle, they will handle you back, so would you mind? So that was my thinking. And I thought that first job, I felt did give me a fantastic platform. I think just for the want of superlatives, I'll only give one. Coming from a high-end company, and it worked a lot in our favor in terms of developing confidence. And that's when I would start believing that I can talk to people. I
Wow.
thought earlier I could only speak to people. Now I thought I could talk to people. That means an extension of thought was a possibility.
Mhm.
And which itself is a confidence builder, I presume. So, over the years, when I reflect back, just to know I can talk to people is a confidence builder. And I think, at least my experience suggests to me that I need to differentiate between speaking and talking all the time. And that's an effort I have made, still continuing to do and trying to find my space, in terms of what I need to talk. So obviously my depth and breadth has to increase in my world so that I can talk still with any kind of people whom I meet and engage, as I said earlier. And hopefully, a thought triggers, another movement triggers, another idea, comes up. For either one of us, I don't know who's the beneficiary. It doesn't matter who takes the credit, as long as the job gets done and elevated. So probably those thoughts have been always lingering in my head. Now, if I look,
Ram, I'm going to ask you, to tell us a little more about speaking and talking. So is it more of like a one way versus
yeah,
talking being the engagement?
yeah, fair enough. When we are speaking to another person, mostly we are trying to act and react with one another. You ask me a question, I answer you a question. Since you asked me a question, where are you working? I'm compelled to ask you a question, where are you working? So we are speaking to one another. We are holding a conversation. But I still don't know the person opposite, or I'm not, even though I know the person opposite, I'm still not on my own to, extend that conversation. Build it, as we say, hold the thread of conversation and build it into a ball of yarn. So that self-belief, to go ahead and one fish to another kind of stuff and make the conversation a little more fruitful. I personally believe when someone meets you, they should take away something. You just can't be, saying all the worldly good things. And finally, I find there is a bit of shallowness over there. So, and if you're out of your depths, I mean, I don't think the person will put you on the guest list, really. So how well can you develop yourself in terms of sharing thoughts? See, the best thing that you can do, which is free also, let me assure you that, is share a thought. And it costs you nothing. And for you to share a thought, you just need a bit of reading. Reading, most people again mistake, reading is about a book. No, you read situations around you, read instincts around you, you read reactions around you, you read people's body language, you read the cues. You don't have to go and read T.S. Eliot or, Orson Welles, or for that matter, Samuel Butler, or, Shakespeare. I really don't think you need to be doing all these things every time. You need them, yes, but I presume reading is just about noticing, observation, just trying to find why, the why question as an engineering, and an engineer would point out, why did it happen? Just a bit of analysis in your mind for 10 seconds and you enjoy it with yourself. And I constantly say, that you have to find company in solitude. and you're your best company because nobody listens to you better than yourself, I guess. So that's not a sad statement. That's a positive comment, really. But the point is, we seek company because we find our own self a little boring, and then we reach out to somebody else, and that guy must be equally boring, really, right? Because you judged yourself badly, you're not going to do well with others
So,
unless.
so Ram, this is lovely. So, what I'm taking away really is that this very first, the job, you
Yep.
took what you could get at that time, the sales,
Yeah.
but it opened up a window. It looks like it opened up a window for you to be you and start pursuing the things which seem like, quite a core aspect of what you value, because a lot of people would say a sales job is about selling, right?
Not really.
Or fooling the other person. I mean, I've heard that perspective as well. That's another narrative. But for you, the way you defined sales was engaging, not just speaking, but talking. And
Yep.
now, as I hear it, reading, right? Reading from the situations, people, and yeah, and letting this aspect of you come through that. So, but take us
Yeah.
beyond that. What happened next?
Yeah, and moved on to another couple of companies, and they were all fine in their own ways. But still, the first love and all that stuff of the first job, you still like that company. And many of my friends even now say if they have to South me in their South, because I spoke a lot about that company for that matter. And because uh, that company also taught you whether you're able to handle a crisis, because there are always crises in that company in terms of the sales, the nature of sales, and you are ready for it because you're compelled by circumstances or by your own will to achieve, because you had competition around your peers. And that probably propelled you, to manage those what do you call crisis that came across. And more I think very importantly that company taught me is not just managing the customers who are external buying my product and services. I think the greatest learning was in terms of managing people who all have high number of years of experience and almost thought they owned the company inside, and the internal customers were the ones that are challenging. This for all youngsters who go into a company, they're going to find seniors who almost believe they own the company, apart from the real owner. And I don't blame them for it because they've given their heart and soul to it. And I really don't blame them. But the fact of the matter is I may be left alone in that game. So I really learned, how to work, cajole them, nudge them, talk to them, engage with them, and still get a yes answer. End of the day, I need a yes answer. If I didn't get a yes, I just didn't do well for the day. Is the percentage of yes I got from my world is what defines my personality and characteristic. At least that much I learned.
So,
Yeah.
Ram, when I hear you talking about this first job, your face just lights up like it's an adventure. Like
Yeah.
this was a wonderful game or an adventure.
Yeah.
And what happened in the jobs after that? Did
I was with Usha
was it
International, and Usha was all that they give you is learning, and I will give it to them.
okay?
And they teach you a lot about the market, and in terms of how the products are placed, managed with your dealers, and the dealer mentality is very different compared to a direct sale mentality. And they all seem to know everybody, so you're just another cog in the wheel. You have to find your space. They have challenged you, make your space, sir, then I'll talk to you. So I was only allowed to speak to them. So if I were to talk to them, you see, I need to really engage with them and make them believe, sir, I'm equally good, not really better. They're there for years, they will anyway walk over me, but I'm still good enough. You can talk to me. And to get that space for yourself did take time. And
Okay.
but I think I also have to commend some of my colleagues and managers who are there, always supportive. Sometimes you really don't give the true credits there. And but since I'm just recollecting a few facts, yes, they were there, and talking to them, making the noises that they make, the sounds. You generally listen not only to the sounds but the silence also that accompanies the sound, and a lot of things being said and echoes in the mind, and probably that led to a fairly decent time that I spent with that company, as well as real value. And real value, we sold vacuumizers which didn't finally take off, but I think the product was a little too early for the Indian market. Brilliant concept, brilliant thinking, everything was great, and the fanfare, everything was wonderful. We even launched the product along with Amitabh Bachchan and Dilip Kumar's movie called Shakti, that level of fanfare. But having said that, somewhere it didn't work out, but still close to heart because we are there from the inception of the product. But that was a learning how a product can really, be marketed, be, the fanfare, and how it can just drop and
Right.
just fizzle away, which is not even there in the market. But that doesn't mean it's not there in the minds of people. Even now, if I make noise about the product, a lot of people say, yeah, somewhere in 90s, they still recollect because that was the level of campaigns that they did. And then probably I went into a hiatus. I said, uh, just again, I thought a job was too much for me to take. You're doing the same thing, right? And what do you do next? So again, drifted, stayed at home. I love to do nothing, right? And that's very important that I do nothing because I'm a great advocate of people to idle. Mostly the word idle is taken in the negative connotation. I generally think idling is a very positive connotation until
Now,
you
I'm going to ask you to tell us more about this because I do think the world needs to hear this. You
yeah.
use these beautiful words, drifting, idling, doing nothing. I love these words.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where I become me again every time I go into these places and
Yeah.
spaces. But
Yeah.
for the longest of time, until almost very recently, it would be, for me, it would be associated with a lot of guilt. Like, I'm enjoying it. I know it's this is where I actually, come alive again. And yet there is this voice that says, oh no, you're wasting time, you're being lazy, you're not achieving anything, you're not working hard enough, and all that battering. So tell us more about the how the drifting and the idling contributed to you, and how you believe it can be a contribution, and what do
Yeah.
people do when they have these battering, oh no 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 no, you're wasting your time, you're being lazy.
So I had these three things which I would generally say it over a dinner or something with my friends. Is I said three things. I had this. I didn't like to study. I don't like to work. That means a job. I meant, and I didn't want anything free. Now the third thing worked for me because I didn't want anything free. I thought it should be my own, right? So actually, the third thing has worked a lot good for me because I had never expected anything free from the other side. So I was compelled to do some kind of jobs here and there and make my money, run my family and all that. Decent money, so it was fine. I'm not going to complain about the money, but yes, it was fine. My kitchen is burning, and with all the modern kitchens with 4 burners, there's still at least 2 are burning. Let me assure you that. So
So Ram, I'm not going to let you go away from the drifting
yeah.
analogy, right? Because let's talk about the benefits of drifting.
Yeah. When you drift because you don't have a particular direction, you drift because you don't have direction. Now, you're not, one is you're not able to find direction, which is okay, really. You can find it through having a chat with people who are in the know.
And it's
But
okay
when,
to have periods when you don't.
yeah,
So
yeah, absolutely. And you didn't want to find direction, and that was me.
nice.
And
And what I'm hearing, and even as I'm here listening to you now, when we do have a direction, I'm a huge believer in goals and goal setting, but I think we also become tunnel vision, right? When
yeah,
we create.
the blinkers
And
on, yes.
yeah, and when we're drifting, I think one of the other benefits is that because we don't have that goal, that's also possibly the time when we get creative ideas. We can get fresh perspectives. We can look around, engage with people, situations that we wouldn't have otherwise because they have nothing to do with the direction in which we were driving ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let
Uh,
let those
yeah,
connections emerge
yeah.
organically.
And to echo your sentiment about the feeling of guilt that envelops you, I just think so did it happen to me. But the fact of the matter is, guilt is a force multiplier, and guilt propels you to do lot many things right, lot many things more, makes you correct things because the burden of guilt is something you can't carry on your head too long, and that's the power of guilt. And so when the guilt did surmount or overwhelm me, I thought it's time you did, but I still didn't do anything. So I just flew out somewhere into Africa. I was managing some airport operations, doing, heading the duty free in East Africa at Entebbe.
Wow. How did that happen?
I just flew to Dubai for a holiday. My brother-in-law stayed there because he knew I was drifting. He said, just come over here, just have some good time. I said, yeah, I'll come over there and have some good time because I like the word good time. So I went there. And but he also said, you want to apply somewhere. So somebody met me at a hotel and said, we'd like to come to Africa. It just was a chance. And I said, why not? I'm doing nothing, so I'll come there. But I thought it was just the airport, the glamour and all that in the year 1998 sounded great, unlike today, when very few were flying those days. And to be in the airport all the while. So the cheap thrills, I suppose. And so I said yes to it. And I went to Entebbe International Airport. I thought I saw cultures over there. I would never miss a moment, watching people, right? I personally believe instincts are played around all the time around you. Everyone catches an instinct, but the discerning mind is what captures the instinct. That's what differentiates two people.
Wow.
Right. So, and I would keep watching them and all kind of cultures walking past and around you. And I thought that was really enterprising, for me to build that.
I'm just connecting this back to what you said about reading, not just reading books, but reading people and situations. And what a fantastic library of books it must have been in the airport in Africa, right? People coming and people going and all the stories unfolding around you.
And the good part about reading with sans the book, if I may say so, is that you don't have to recuddle your memory because it will just come back. It is always in the recesses of the mind because it's experiential learning. Unlike a book, you may have to try and knock your head and say, where did I read it? Who was the author? Yeah, which was the section? You have to, and sometimes you may have to go back to the book and try and find that space where it appealed to you. So there's a bit of work always, if you read it 10 years back, unless you read it just last week or 1 year back. But that's the challenge with the book, but not necessarily for all. There are some people with elephantine memories, so they can really point out the page number and the paragraph, but not so with everybody. So let's be clear at least, because they...
Yeah. And one more thing that's just striking me, because I love this analogy of reading but not books, and I'm going to tell this to my son today because he doesn't like reading books, but he loves reading people and situations, and I'm going to give it to him today saying you do read. And a book I think is actually very limited because it's been crafted out of one person, the author's imagination, but when you're reading the world around you, it's being co-created by reality itself. So many people, right? Life unfolding. And you get to read it in all that richness.
And probably the salient feature over there would be, where you can identify and say, yeah, I was there. I saw this before. Yeah, I heard this before. And if a human mind can reflect, you did very well to that mind. It is your job as best as possible, if you have the ability to think, to make the other person to pause, think and reflect. So the best thing you can do to the world is give it a thought. They will anyway do better than you in terms of the action because you're idling anyway. So that's my view, right? So
where did you go after Africa?
Yeah, then I came back, and the safety and the family safety was always a concern. So I was back in India. Wondering whether to go back or not. Again, a chance meeting with somebody. It had to happen, I guess. My wife met ex-colleague at the petrol bunk, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And she said, "My husband is there in the shop." And she said, "What is he doing?" He said, "Africa somewhere." "No, he's back. So would he like to train?" She said, "No, he wouldn't like it." "Why?" He said he fears speaking in public. So I said, "Training is about speaking in public," she told him. And he said, I really won't bother. Ask him to meet me. So I met him and I told him so. He says, "No, I don't really bother." I said, "I can't speak in public and I dread. And you're telling me, please go ahead and join." I said, "Somewhere you're wrong in your assessment." He says, "I have not heard you. So you tell me when you're joining." I said, "What is this man up to?" And then I said to myself, this is the best turning point of my life. So I can say it categorically this time, right? Whenever I have self-doubt or a lack of self-belief, a particular phrase always hits my head, and I repeat it even till date. And this is the phrase says that do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain.
Wow. Do the thing
So
you fear, and the death of fear is certain.
certain, yeah.
So you do it, and then the fear goes
Yeah.
away, right?
The repetitive nature of your action, slowly gives you the confidence, and the fear dies.
Yeah.
And this is a phrase I picked it up from Alistair MacLean's storybook, Fear is the Key. So the credit goes there, and it's not to me.
Mhm.
So, and I thought this just stuck in my head when I read it. So I thought that was a very telling statement. And I thought it was very practical also, because when I tried it, and over you tried something, you started gaining confidence, and the fear slowly, started to mitigate and in fact vanished. And that was the case with me. Almost took me 1 year before I was able to speak really, uh, uh, with whatever I could offer with confidence. That was more important. How well I spoke or didn't had never mattered to me even till date. It's whatever I have to offer, has it been delivered? That's the biggest concern any speaker should have,
Wow.
was my belief. And even now it's the same belief I live with. So hence the flow could be very easy in my mind, because I'm not too worried what the other person thinks. I'm too worried about what whether
That
my
they
thought
got it.
has been transmitted or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's more important, and that really worked, though that was not my line. I even though I was there for a while, even though I'm in it for a while, with due respects to all my customers who have engaged me, right? I still felt I could do very well one-on-one. I moved on to executive coaching. I started talking to people one-on-one, and help people see their own instincts through my view. And not many understand their own instincts. They try to only relate to the information that they have received, but I think there's an instinct behind the information which they need to relate to and find themselves, and that is my job.
Can you give us an example of this? In information, relating to information versus
Yeah.
relating to
But I
instinct.
can give I can give a live example, Ramya. It's like this. I was coaching a gentleman who was an advertising agency, and it was a 6 month long period that we were supposed to engage, and 2.5 months, 2 months, 2.5 months was too long a time that I engaged without even a semblance of a result. Nothing worked with the guy. He was the same, probably even worse off after I met him. And I thought I'm going to rescind the contract and tell him I'm not doing well for you, sir, because I thought the money that I would earn would not be justified. And I thought, and he's a good friend, so I think I should back off. And with these thoughts, I was just about leaving his office. He had one habit of his that probably that habit worked in its sense, because otherwise I would have just said and left the premise. But he always said, I'll drop you to your car. He always did. He'll come down all the way, walk that 100 meters or 200, wherever I get my parking. He'll come, stand there, say bye, and then leave. He said, wait, Ram, I'll drop you to your car. I said, sure. So I waited because it was a ritual. And as he was, sorting out his colleagues over there in the office, one gentleman in his office called out his name. And this person said, yeah, who is it? He turned like this with an abrupt, you just watch me do it, right? With a very abrupt neck movement. I think I found my answer. I think on that day, I found the answer. I told him, sir, can we meet again? I will not mention his name. So, and I said, he said, sure, Ram. You want to talk to me again? Yeah, give me 10 minutes if you can. He says, anytime, please. And we went back to his cabin. And I said, do you know what you did? He said, I don't know what I did. Tell me what I did. I said, the other colleague, whom also I knew very well, he said, he called out to you for some work related issue. And do you know what you did? He said, go ahead, Ram, tell me what I did. I said, you just turned your head very abruptly. So your instinct is abrupt. It is not measured. It's not deliberate. You didn't say, yeah, who is this? Or if you recognize the voice, you didn't call out the name of the person and yes, you need my attention, or nothing like that. There was no conversation. There was no question. There was no, checking, confirmation of where the noise came from. Instead, you just abruptly turned your head. And I guess your decision making is related to the style of thinking, very abrupt. And the next time, can you just turn your head a little too slowly? And because you can't really work on your mind straight up, you have to use your body, first up, because that's an easier way to work with yourself. And then your mind gets tuned to the new normal, if that's the term today. Right. And I thought it worked wonders. It just about made my coaching with him, and we concluded the 6 months. And needless to say, there were too many good things that happened from what my ward said. Very happy. But I thought the clincher was this. Your small movements, I always say, you move, I'll pick you, right? Because the instinct is always there. The man is all the time throwing his instincts. You just have to be alert enough. It's not, I was at a conference, yesterday, and I was telling some people, you don't have to be smart and intelligent. You just have to be alert and sensible, right? Because there's always a couple of people around you, leave alone away from you, who would be much more smarter and intelligent than you are. So if you're alert to what is happening around you, your circumstances and the people, and you're sensible enough to understand it, how it affects you or not, I think you're walking your journey of life a little better than others, or at least a little better for yourself. Let's not compare for the moment. So yeah.
Very nice. Ram, as I'm listening to your experience, this one in which you played the coach and connecting back to all the previous experiences, meeting your wife's colleague in the petrol pump, or, the job in Africa with your brother's friend, and the sales, the initial sales experience. It seems like people play such an important role in your life, just the role that other people play. And do you want to talk about that a little in the context of, if you were to give, if I may use the word advice, okay, or just your thoughts to a person who's right now looking at crafting their career, who's, the audience of this series is people who would be in an employed job and who are looking to go out there into the world of adventure, into the jungle of not being, getting a standard paycheck every home from an employer, but just creating their life and career. And that can be scary. That brings with it lots of fears. And people often think they have to do it alone, not recognizing that there are so many other people who can and be a part of your journey and create those opportunities for you, just as, it's been there for you. So a little bit about that aspect of the fact that we don't have to do it, and we don't do it all alone.
Yeah, it's a fact. We don't do it alone, and we shouldn't be doing. We shouldn't believe that we are alone. That's anyway a given thing, and that fear, I think, people should try and remove from their mind. But it'll get removed, I also presume, as they enter into it. The greatest thing about I was at a conference. There was the two Australians who were speaking in that conference. I like it. I think this experience answers your question. As they're two brothers, I think, and we are around 150 people, all of them. It was very enjoyable. And one speaker just stood up and said, "Can you all tell me what's common about Bill Gates, Michael Dell, Steve Jobs, J.K. Rowling, and just one more person whom I forget the name." So 5 names he threw up. And everyone said, "Oh, they have a lot of money." So some guys, "Oh, they're all achievers. Oh, that's at least taken. And they're great achievers, still taken." So you got all kinds of answers. But he says, "I haven't got the answer that is really the requirement and the real answer." So everyone are trying to outguess one another, 150 people. So the noises were different and repetitive. And we all probably lost it. And we all looked at the speaker and said, "Come on, you say it, since you seem to know the answer." And I think he gave a wonderful, wonderful answer. He said, "It's very simple. All these 5 names that I throw up at you, they may be whatever you said, and they are. But one great thing about them is they all started. Most of us always have a wish list, and we have never differentiated between wishes and dreams. That's another problem we have. Sometimes we wish to do it, but we don't really dream. And I think we have to move away from wishes. This is a small, I won't advise, I'm still learning, but I would definitely suggest that, yeah, we should move away from, and differentiate wishes from dreams. And one very important part, which I will add to it.
Could you give us an example of, differentiating between wishes and dreams, perhaps from your own life?
Yeah, wishes is something, many times wishes do occur because you saw somebody and got provoked by the other person's success and, the pomp and show that you saw it. You wish you were there. You wish you were like the person. You wish you, no, but your personality, like I see an actor, who performs great, and I want to be that actor because he's so stylish and so presentable and can really make, people say, wow, and I want to be that. It's a wish. But that's not my dream. Come on. I'm not an entertainer. And that person, that lady or gent is an entertainer. So
Yeah.
they know how to do
So
this,
whether
play the
it's
game very well.
an intrinsic desire or something that's just triggered by the outside.
So you always have to, learn to sit beside yourself. Always learn to sit beside yourself and see the trajectory of your own mind. Where does your mind lean to? That's you. Constantly your mind will lean to a particular aspect of thought, and that's you. Until you pick yourself, rest are all wishes.
Ram, I want you to tell us a little more about how you did this in your life, because this is so important. It's so precious. What you're calling the trajectory of your mind, picking it. I call it crafting our inner worlds. But take us through some examples of, how you kept picking and, even getting aware, because we need to sort of, it's almost like an art we need to learn, right? To even get to know what's inside our mind and be able to sometimes distinguish it from all the wishes that are just there because everyone else has it. So how did you do that? And how are you still doing that? Because I guess it's an ongoing journey.
I would agree with that. The fact of the matter is that you have to, and I've already used the word idling. You have to learn to be a man as an idler. Come on. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invented a bicycle. The man, like this was a Lech Walesa's statement, the Polish big man. And very important that you learn to idle. What is idling? Now, this is what you need to understand very clearly. Idling is not about you just sitting and doing nothing. Idling is about sitting and not thinking. But you can argue the mind will never rest without thinking. And you're right. That means you're letting thoughts come to you. Most people sit and think. Please don't think at least for 10 minutes or 30 minutes in your life every day. At least 5 minutes. Let's make a beginning, if at all. And let thoughts come to you. The thoughts that come to you are you. The thoughts that you think are compulsions, obligations, your world, you can't do much about it. It will keep coming. But at least, can you spare at least 5 minutes to 30 minutes of your time, whatever is plausible, and start
creating that space inside, right? Through idling, so that the authentic you can find its flow.
Yeah, it's like a vehicle, you go to a mechanic. The mechanic will always test your vehicle when it is idle. He'll just switch on the engine without accelerating because he knows the health of the engine through the process of idling. So you know your health of your mind through the process of idling.
Okay, Ram, this is such a quotable quote. Yes, we know the health of our mind, and we can know our mind itself, the nature of our mind when it's idling, right?
And that is when you get your trajectory of your head. You know you're leaning all the time towards there. And this is a great thing that parents do to their children, is telling, I'm a doctor, you be a doctor. But for all you know, that little child has inherited the genetics of a grandfather and a maternal or paternal side, and probably wanted to be a civil construction business or wanted to be somewhere else. But the father said, since I'm a doctor, you should be a doctor. And you almost, that is when Viktor Franklin spoke about the existential theory. I think this is what it is. After I did well, one thing you should remember is early success sometimes can fool you to believe that you're good at it. And you start pursuing the same line, but after you complete it, you will start realizing that probably that is not you. Your mind was elsewhere.
It's hitting home a lot here. And since I actually, guide people on their careers, I know this is so true. It happens way more often than we predict. And in fact, the other trap of early success is also it becomes that much more difficult to let go. So
Let
even
go.
at some point, if you realize, once we realize that, oh, but my heart or my leaning, as you put it, is
Yeah.
somewhere else, but there's all the success here. And now I need to leave all of this and go towards my leaning. And that takes courage.
Yeah, and there are
So
many who are youngsters who are currently showing that great amount of courage. I think you just have to, doff your hat to them, and they're so. I mean, they just leave their job and everything and go and do what their calling is. And I think we need more. We need more of them, and because we need creative people. And if you ask me if there are enough creative people, there are many there. It is only that they all require their triggers, and all of us, and someone said we need teachers. So the teachers should learn to provoke people either positively or negatively, which is anyway a trigger, and make them start thinking, and go after the reckoning. You never know what it beholds, isn't it?
yes. So Ram, if I were to, I would love to keep talking with you. Actually, I've learned so much through this conversation, through engaging with you, to use your words. I'm a quick learner. But, we need to end this. But before we end this, I'm going to ask you one more question, which is when you look back at your own, career, life, trajectory, all of that so far, what has been one of the most challenging times and experiences for you? And how did you get through or navigate that period?
uh, I think the most challenging thing was my inability to put my thoughts, document my thoughts, which is what I finally done, and that was my challenge. So I believe distraction is one form of an attraction itself. So to keep your mind calm, so I would distract myself in as many ways as possible, so that I don't get bogged down with the inadequacy of my abilities, and just let myself drift. I didn't mind drifting at all. I didn't think it was a bad thing. I knew it was not a good thing, but I did know for my mental balance it was not a bad thing. So just to keep, I said the time will come. It may happen. I know I had to keep telling myself, yeah, it will happen. I don't know when it will happen, but whenever I'm ready for it, am I prepared? So that level of preparation, so that was the hard work. Talking to myself and keep telling myself it will happen in spite of all the shortcomings that I had during that period was probably a positive factor. Let me put it very mildly. Yeah.
And this documentation of your thoughts is what led you to write your book, right?
This is
So
just one of them. This is a
one
prelude.
of them.
But my basic thought is somewhere else. But this is something that was I experienced. So I said this experience has to be put across. This is a thought that was being nurtured in my head for the last 11 years. I said, why am I not putting it? So then I got a trigger from, somewhere from two young people. And so they also probably told me, come on, it works. So I said, let me do that. And just hope for the best. Hopefully people read it, find it engaging, find it, useful. That is the idea. At least to a certain extent, I'm quite happy that I have been able to document the thought in some form of a structure. And hopefully, it's readable and useful. That's obviously all the hope any author would have. So do I. Uh, but overcoming that period, through I advocate distraction. I advocate all the words that people say it's in negative context. I like distraction. Distraction is form of an attraction, and or it aids in attraction or focus. So it's very important that just like you work too hard, just have to take a walk. That's a distraction. And that will bring you back to refocus on your work. I tried my best to be conscious and I never berated myself for being distracted for almost 10 years. I said my time will come. Let me wait for it. And well, a little bit start has happened.
Wonderful. And while we're talking about work and focus and attention, as opposed to not getting distracted and putting in our effort into something, I'm going to ask you how you measure, and if measure sounds too much of an engineering term, replace it with anything else, but even just roughly gauge your own personal return on the time that you invest in doing your work. Because
Oh,
and so just to give you an idea of what I mean by return on time invested at work, like a very simplistic way is what we do in a job, right? We say this is the salary, it's like this is the compensation for the time. But then we start recognizing that there are more, like you talked about learning, you talked about growth, you talked about meeting people and reading people and self-expression. And so just putting, looking at that entire portfolio for you today, as of today, in the way you structure your day, do your work, how do you gauge that return?
thing that I would have got back from all these efforts would be that when I just sit alone, I somewhere in my mind can tell myself, you just about made a small contribution. And the word contribution was a very large word, and it probably supersedes all other, return of investment as we speak, who
So,
have,
and when you say contribution, because it is a very beautiful word, it's also a very loaded word.
yeah.
How do you hold it in your head? Is this a contribution in the lives of others in terms of how they feel, or in terms of how they grow, or in terms of how much they create, GDP, or internally or artistically, or a contribution to yourself in terms of how you're growing and evolving? So how do you even gauge contribution?
Contribution, firstly, is a very selfish motive. So let me assure you that.
Mhm.
So I don't want to sound philanthropic, right? And firstly, you have to feel satisfied with what you have done. And when that satisfaction is again coupled with when people tell you, yes, what you said was useful, what you said was thoughtful, what you said brought insights into my
So
thinking and
when
gave me a
people
new perspective.
derive value
Yeah, so
from
it adds to my satisfaction, and my selfishness is satisfied. And selfishness is a good thing because it's a human instinct. So it's a survival instinct. So I like the word. But as long as it's not self-centered, you have to remember there's a differentiation between these two words. But selfishness is used in wrong connotations. But unfortunately, it's a very good positive word, because the aircraft tells you the same thing. You first, yeah,
mascot.
yeah, mask yourself, then the ones near, even if they're your children or your parents, adults or whatever. So that is a survival instinct. So, but when it is coupled with people coming back to tell you that, sir, you have actually given me a thought to think, a new perspective, and I think that adds up to your being, and you almost feel smug at times. You almost feel a little comfort. So what happens then? What happens with these feelings is that when you go through a low phase, these feelings sort of play a firewall in your head, and they mitigate those low feelings and probably bring you back into balance a little faster, unlike when you don't have these contributions that you have made.
Wow. Thank you, Ram. I love the way you painted it, from, taking off from the self-interest and, looking at how you impact, create change, create thoughts in the heads of others, getting back that acknowledgement, and how it's satisfying, and how it can build these walls that then fortify you in your own journey, because there are going to be the ups and downs. We all have them, and that keeps you going. Thank you so much for that very visual and powerful description there. It's been truly a joy engaging with you. Thank you once again for your
Thank you.
time.
Do
We are
appreciate it.
going to put details about where people can find you in the description, and find your recent book. And yeah, we'd love for anyone listening to this episode to check out Ram, his work, and his wonderful book that's come out as well. Thank you once again, Ram.
Many thanks, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If you are someone who's looking to craft your life and work in a way that is more in line with your inner rhythm, then do visit my website, www.craftingourlives.com. You'll find it in the description, because I have a host of resources put together for you. And this is based on 20 years of my own research and work with people as a coach in this area. I also have a free newsletter, so your starting points should be to sign up for my newsletter, subscribe to this channel to stay updated for further videos, and to go on to the edX site and look for my free MOOC course there titled Crafting Realities, Work, Happiness and Meaning, and then reach out to me if you need further assistance. I also offer private coaching, as well as I run group coaching sessions, and I also conduct residential retreats, and you can find all that information on my website or in the newsletter as and when we announce